Chapter 2, Legacy in Cursive. Legacies are lost, and dreams are disoriented at night because we've allowed society to write the narrative of our life. The majority of families living in poverty don't know their origins. You'll feel like a ghost because you're cursed with an erased past and haunted by the uncertainty of your future. Family origins are the roots of the family tree. When an individual doesn't know their family history, they tend to branch out in the wrong direction. They follow the wrong voices, join the wrong crowds, educate themselves with false information, and live on faulty principles. Ironically, those same people can't figure out why they're not happy with where they are in life. During the late 1960s and 70s, America was trying to heal itself from the wounds of the civil rights movement. It left a scar on America which we were supposed to view as a reminder. However, America had problems trusting the healing process of this change and tended to peel off the scab before it could heal. America stared at its own imperfections so hard that the nation forgot to notice how beautiful its reflection was becoming. America was on the verge of becoming a more mature nation, but a series of immature acts left us paused in the past. You can't expect a flower to blossom if you cut off the bud every time it starts to sprout. Many lives were lost during the healing process, including Martin Luther King Jr., who watered his dream until it grew into existence.
The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty.
America had lowered the drawbridge to equality, and we were free at last. But one question was never answered. Where do we go from here? If you fast forward a few years, you'll notice during the early 1970s, gangs emerged from the shadows and became territorial. There was an increase in the poverty rate, and people started killing their own race. People started fighting each other since they no longer knew what to fight for. The same demographic that once came together, peacefully protesting for equality, started marching backwards. It was like they unlocked the gate, gaining access to what they yearned for, but forgot how to collaborate with each other once arriving on the other side. We've allowed society to write a bad narrative about us. We've been stuck on the same page like a bookmark because no one comprehended where we should have gone from there. The leaders and influential figures of that era didn't have the answers because where we should have gone from there was not their assignment. We'll never forget the powerful images of the civil rights movement because everyone who played a role has a coffin resting on our conscience. We celebrate their life's work through memorials, monuments, museums, historical months, and reserved holidays. However, no one wants to admit that we have failed them. We did not fail them as a race, community, region, or state. We failed them as a nation because Lady Liberty doesn't know how beautiful she really is. She hides behind a false color, and we paint a portrait of her that doesn't reveal the truth behind her scars. We shouldn't be ashamed to talk about these scars because they remind us of our nation's truth. The truth tells us exactly how far we've come and highlights the areas where we can still improve. In today's society, we sometimes forget our progress and treat each other like our history has deleted scenes. The educational system teaches us that America's history is merely a photo album. The present generation views these images from the perspective of how is this relevant to us? And the youngsters exploring these interests that gravitated them towards these topics are interrogated by the older generations quoting, "You weren't living during those time periods, so what do you really know about how it felt?" If this is your attitude, I need you to restart your brain the next time you go to sleep so you can wake up with the realities of how America has evolved. Once your update has been installed, don't pop quiz the next generation asking what's wrong with them when the information of where you went wrong was never on the chalkboard. Now, we live in a nation where people tend to forget that it was the ugly moments in history that gave us access to see how beautiful the country is today. America has never seen its reflection in 2020 vision. The curse of not sharing our origins trickles down into each and every American family hiding the truth from their children. Don't be afraid of the Pandora box on the shelf decorated in decades-old spiderwebs. Millions of people are clueless of their purpose. It has brought them to a dead end mentally and financially. Now they're merely making enough money to keep their noses above water. They don't know where to go from here. They've grown so far in the wrong direction that they paved a route even further from their purpose in life. Legacy is the sole purpose in life. The next generation is supposed to be an upgrade of the previous generation, but this cannot be achieved if the ancestors of that family tree failed to plant a legacy. When the next generation steps up to the plate in this game called life, they should be able to stand on their ancestors' life's work and see further than they could ever see. Even if the next generation doesn't follow their ancestors' footsteps, they should at least be able to follow their principles. Therefore, the legacy of their family tree continues to grow regardless of the occupation chosen by the next generation. The childhood trauma that Frank Williams experienced resonated from this same atmosphere. His ancestors planted a seed that grew a family tree, but they didn't plant a legacy to grow along with it. During the early stages of Frank's life in the 70s, he realized that his life lacked family origins and a father figure who led by example. He would see glimpses of different men coming into his mother's life, but none of the relationships endured to the point of him understanding a father's role. He had an open wound on his heart that only his father could patch. It rooted so deep that he didn't even feel the pain of his absence. Frank became immune to his unfortunate upbringing. His father chose to be absent in his life, nurturing children he had with other women. Since his biological father was never in his life, Frank didn't have any knowledge of what a father figure was, or the benefits of having one present during the early stages of life. At that particular time, he didn't understand that his mother couldn't teach him everything. There were lessons best translated with a father figure in the household. Never meeting his grandparents and an absent father promoted generational poverty in the images Frank saw on a daily basis. Without a legacy growing at the same rate of your family tree, your family becomes brittle and breaks away from each other. Then the next generation lives with a reincarnated curse that was merely dormant during their childhood years. If the next generation cannot benefit from the previous, it's almost like their ancestors never existed. This is how poverty is passed down the family tree like an heirloom. Frank never accepted this family heirloom. He didn't know at the time, but a dream he had at a young age gave him a glimpse of what his legacy had the potential to become. During the early stages of his life, Frank dreamed that one day he would write his name in cursive. He made this dream a concrete reality by writing his name religiously every single day. He never had a father, grandparents, or any idea about his family origins, but for some odd reason, writing his name meant everything to him. It was as if he was proud to be part of a family tree he never knew. Frank wrote his name over and over on multiple sheets of paper at school. He wrote his name at home during all hours of the night. Frank adopted the habit of writing his name in this fashion from elementary school throughout his high school years. Frank Williams in cursive meant the world to him, but he could never figure out why. Writing his name in cursive spoke volumes into his life because he was finally starting to get an identity of who he was. He didn't know his ancestors nor his own origins, and at the same time was uncertain about his future. One thing that was crystal clear to him as a child is that his name had the opportunity to mean something, because he literally wrote it into existence.